Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Guten Abend, guten Tag, good day, hello.
Well done. And welcome to our MVA Code Exists, the Birth of Bot, where we're going to have some fun today building an entire video game from scratch. And if you were with us for the hour of code, we took a broken video game which featured Bot hopping around a cityscape trying to dodge obstacles. And we had to fix up that game. And it was a fun experience to try and fix up a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not the same as building an entire game from scratch, because then you have complete control over all the elements of the game. And that's what we're going to show you how to do today.
Yes. But before we go into the code and get into actually learning all these awesome coding concepts, why don't we do a little introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's introduce ourselves, if nothing else. So my name is Susan Ibach, and I'm a technical evangelist for Microsoft Canada. What that means is, for my job, I help show developers how to use our tools to do some cool things and to build different types of applications. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and the first program I ever wrote was a choose-your-own-adventure program using a computer that had 64K of memory. And basically the code was pretty simple. It was you would display a message that said you are walking down a hallway and you reach a junction. Do you want to turn right or left? And if they turned right, I would have them get eaten by a monster. If they turned left, they found an amazing treasure. And that was pretty much the complexity of my code. But I had so much fun writing it, deciding what would happen when they turned right, when they turned left, what kind of monster would they meet, what treasure would they find. And I had a blast watching my friends play it. So I found games was actually how I started getting into programming, and I had a lot of fun doing it. How about you, Sage?
Yeah, I actually started with kind of a game as well. My first game was actually Turtle.vb, which is a coding story that a lot of beginner coders have. Because Turtle is this basic program where you have an 8-bit little turtle image, and then you write lines of code to make him draw around the screen and draw whatever shapes in whatever colors you want. So it wasn't a game in the way that yours was with choose-your-own-adventure type of storyline, but it was a game because you could make things happen, and it had the graphics that made it feel very interactive and exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And I've used that Turtle before in other programming languages. It is a very popular way of getting started with programming. But we're going to use a slightly different tool today. We're going to be using a tool called Touch Develop. And Touch Develop is great because all you need to use it is a browser. And it allows you to both build applications and to build games. So we're going to be doing a game here today to get you going with the world of code, but you can use it to build applications as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But Sage, we should take a minute to meet you as well.
Okay. Well, my name is Sage Franch, and I'm a Microsoft student partner. I study computer science at Dalhousie University, which is in Halifax on the east coast of Canada. And as a Microsoft student partner, what I do is I work on bringing Microsoft to the campus. So I run hackathons, coding camps, other events like that. And I also act as a bit of an advocate for equality in technology by trying to make sure that all students have equal opportunities when it comes to Microsoft on campus. Aside from that, I am a longtime geek and a trendy techie. I started coding when I was 15 with that Turtle.vb program, and I've been doing all kinds of apps, games, websites ever since. And most recently, I've actually started writing about technology on my website, trendytechie.ca, which is fashion, technology, everything in between, and just general life as a woman, a young person in computer science. Because there are a lot of stereotypes about what it means to be a geek or a nerd, and ultimately, those stereotypes are just not true. And what does a real coder look like?
We'll wave. Hi, that would be us.
Hey,
we're coders.
We're coders.
And if you're watching this, then take a look in the mirror.
A coder too. Yeah.
Maybe you can join us. You're a coder as well, so you just never know. Awesome. So shall we start going with taking a look at Touch Develop and what we're doing?
Yeah, let's take a look at our course outline for today.
Yeah, good idea. Let's take a quick look at what we're going to be covering. So in this module, Module 1, we're going to cover a bit of how to get started with the tool, how to sign into it, and get started building your first application, sort of how do you create that new program. Then in Module 2, we'll take you through some of the components that you're going to need when you're building any sort of program, objects, functions, parameters. Then we're going to get into the coordinate system, which is particularly important when you're building a game because it controls locations of objects on your screen. Then we're going to talk about events, which will be important because that allows us to control the things that happen in a game, how a user interacts with it.
Yeah, and then in Module 5, we're going to take that a little bit farther and go with conditional statements, which allows you to make decisions in the game. That is very important because it helps us model the game or app like we model real life. Then in Module 6, we're going to move on to detecting collisions so we can build more interactivity into our game. Heading on with Module 7, adding more obstacles to the game, making it more complicated, maybe adding more difficulty levels. And then moving on to number 8, which is custom functions, so you can add more images, more obstacles, and make it that much more dynamic.
And at the very end of it, one of the most important things is we're going to show you how to share the game that you've created so you can share your game with others and have your friends playing it.
Yeah, because what fun is a game if only one person has it, right?
Yeah.
It's so much better when you can share it and have other people play it and see the awesome work that you've created.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So now we have an idea of what we're going to be covering over the course of the different modules. We'll be breaking it up into different modules, so you'll be able to start and stop different modules as we go along. So each of those will be a separate little recording that you can watch.
Yeah, exactly. Just to set some expectations for this course, if you are a new coder or have no experience coding, then this is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it says students there, but you know what? It's not just for students. It's for anybody who has been saying, hey, you know, I'd like to try programming, but I've always just been a little intimidated by it, or I was never sure how to get started. Anybody who's just got an interest in getting started coding, whether you've ever coded before or not, or you've coded before, but maybe you've never tried to build a game, you might still enjoy this. I think you'll still have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, exactly. And the only suggested requirement is to, if you have no experience, to have watched our Hour of Code prerequisite course, which was just a single hour webcast that we did on Touch Develop that Susan mentioned before, fixing that broken jetpack jumper game.
But you could follow along. You'll manage. If you haven't seen the Hour of Code, don't feel like you have to leave. Stick around, keep going. I think you'll be able to follow.
All right, so we're going to move on with Module 1 now, and our outline for this module has 2 sections, Getting Started and Variables, which is our very first programming concept. But before we get into that, we have to get started by actually looking at the tool and logging into it and really just
where do I go?
Environment.
Where do I go to start coding? I mean, obviously, I've got to go to somewhere to do this.
Exactly. Actually, you know what? Before we go into that, we're going to talk a little bit about why you should learn to code. Because a lot of people say, you know, coding is the next math, it's the next reading, but why?
Yeah, you do hear a lot of it, and I've heard a lot of things about, but there are a lot of jobs in the programming world as well,
yes,
too.
Exactly. So let's hear from some famous people in the news about why they should learn to code. Drew Houston, founder of Dropbox, says, coding is the closest thing we have to a superpower.
I love that quote because I do feel that's true. I have the good fortune to be involved in the Microsoft Imagine Cup, where students are building things with code to try and help others and to do some neat stuff. And some of the technology and applications I've seen built at Imagine Cup blow my mind. They really are superpowers and superheroes for the stuff they're doing, building applications that help diagnose medical conditions. I saw one team of students who built a pair of gloves that you could do sign language wearing the gloves, and then your phone would literally speak through a Bluetooth signal what you signed. My mind was completely blown.
That's amazing.
So you can do so much with coding when you get further into it. We all have to start at the same place, but once you get into it, it is a superpower. I love that quote.
It is, absolutely. And that brings us to our next quote. If you can create technology, you can change the world.
Yes.
And that is so true. With your superpower, you can make applications and software that can really help people live their lives and augment their lives to make them better. And with that, you can change the world.
Yeah. So we're starting with games, but where it can take you is entirely up to you.
Yeah. Another quote, this time from Gabe Newell, creator of Valve. The programmers of tomorrow are the wizards of the future. I really like that.
Okay, I'm going to admit to my my Dungeons and Dragons backgrounds. I'm like, cool, I always wanted to be a wizard. Okay,
dreams come true, Susan.
Yeah, dream come true for me.
And then finally, this is a non-technology personality here, Will.i.am, co-founder of the Black Eyed Peas. He says, great coders are today's rock stars.
Nice.
Coming from a music guy, that's pretty
That's
profound.
cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I can be a wizard and a rock star. I'm all in. Let's go. Show me how to do this.
All right, so now we know why you should learn to code, but why Touch Develop? Well, Touch Develop is a very easy, ground-up way to learn coding and to learn the basic concepts without getting all tied up in the little semantics. For anyone who's done any coding language before, you know that a semicolon or a comma in the wrong place can ruin your whole program.
Yeah, the number of times I've had to ask somebody to take a look at my code and help me figure out the missing comma or quote. It does happen, and it'll still happen to you in Touch Develop as well, but it is a little more forgiving than some other programming languages, so you're a little less likely to spend as much time looking for the missing comma.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it so much easier just to build apps and games without having to worry about those little things. Also, it runs on anything, and it's completely free.
Yeah,
so
all you need is a browser.
Yeah, exactly. Internet Explorer, Firefox, whatever you want to use, as long as you just have an internet connection. You can even do it on your phone. It was really cool when we were doing Hour of Code. We had some students using their phones to do develop apps and games.
Yeah, exactly. I have seen people using Touch Develop on the phone. It really is very odd to see someone coding on a phone. It just boggles the mind. But yeah, I would not recommend that as a practice because it's on a small screen. It's a lot easier. But seriously, if you have a tablet of some sort, you can absolutely, because it is designed for touch, you don't have to have a keyboard. You can actually do it on a tablet as well if that's all you've got. So I like doing it on a laptop with a keyboard, but if all you have is a tablet, don't let that stop you.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at what you will learn in this course.
Okay.
You will learn how to build a game from scratch in Touch Develop.
Cool.
Our game is going to be a side scroller. We'll show you what that means in a minute. And through building this game, you're going to learn coding concepts that apply to any language.
Yes.
It's kind of like when you learn English or you learn French or Spanish. You can understand the other languages just by knowing, the basic structure and the basic language rules.
Well, the roots of when you learn Spanish and Italian, a lot of the roots and the verbs and so on are very similar. So it's really useful when you're exploring another not a programming language, another spoken language, the fact that it is so similar, because you will find a lot of similarities in the structure, in the words, because they all come from that same Latin root. You're going to find the same thing in programming languages. Yes, we're learning Touch Develop, but if you decide down the road to go explore something like C# or JavaScript, you're going to see a lot of similar concepts and similar functions and so on as you work forward. So the stuff you apply here will apply to other ones. The syntax is just going to be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. And like Java and C# and some other languages, Touch Develop is object-oriented. Mm-hmm. So it's built in a very similar way to the way we deal with things in real life.
Okay, awesome.
It's really good. What you won't learn in this course is how to create the next big superhero movie and add special effects and do all these crazy things to it.
Or how to create Halo. I mean, we're not getting to that sort of level of the game. We can't cover that in a day.
I wish we could, but maybe for the next one.
Yeah, we'll see if we can do that.
So without further ado, let's get started.
Yeah, I think it's time to go poking around.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot, but let's actually take a look at the tool. So there are 3 steps that we need to do to get started with Touch Develop, and it's really simple. The first one is you go to touchdevelop.com in your browser, click on the green Launch Touch Develop button, and select Sign In.
And you don't have to sign in to start working with Touch Develop, but the advantage to signing in is that's going to give you the ability to do 2 things. One, it's going to give you a way of saving your games and publishing your games more easily. It will actually save your games automatically. And the other thing it's going to allow you to do is when you start designing your games, you're probably going to want to customize the graphics. And you can actually add your own custom-made graphics if you've signed in. So that is an advantage to signing in. It's not required, but if you do, then you can make your own graphics, and that's an awesome thing.
And another advantage is actually that you can pick up where you left off with your game or your app on another device. So if I start on this computer right here and I log in and save all my work, then I can go to my phone later if I'm on the bus to work and continue working on my game there.
Yes, that's also another great point. Absolutely. All right, so
let's go to our very first demo.
Okay, let's go do that live. It's time for go to Touch Develop, see what happens.
So I've gone to touchdevelop.com here, and you can see this is the main home screen. The first button we see is Launch Touch Develop, which is what we saw in the deck. And if I scroll down for a second here, you can see Hour of Code with Touch Develop. And if you followed along with our Hour of Code video, this is where all those resources are to actually fix the broken Jetpack Jumper game. But since we're going to create it from scratch, we're just going to go create a whole new script ourselves.
I like it.
So we're going to launch Touch Develop, and we're brought to the home screen here. The first thing you notice is this blue box that pops up, and that is just showing you to go to tutorials if you want to, build or fix a game or build a game from scratch that's guided. But we're not going to do that today because we will be your tutorial.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to say I'm going to do it completely from scratch today.
So we're going to sign in, and once you click on this, you've got 4 options: sign in with Microsoft, Facebook, Google, or Yahoo. And I'm going to use my Microsoft account to sign in. And I am going to use this email address.
Yep, and if you don't have a Microsoft account, very easy to go create one by visiting Outlook.com.
Exactly. And you'll notice that up here is my user ID. Now, that doesn't say my name because I haven't gone into the settings and added any personal details. That's one feature I really like about Touch Develop, is it's very private, it's very safe for you to use, and you don't actually have to put in any identifying information if you don't want to. So this is great for if you're very young or
nephew,
exactly.
Well, for me and my kids, if I want to let my kids try this, it gives me a level of comfort because if they're publishing their games, they're not letting out their identities. So it is nicely designed to protect your kids.
Yeah. So once you've signed in, you can go in and you'll see that the portal's changed a little bit. I've got my games and apps that I've already created over here. And we're just going to go and select the tile that says Create a Script. And this prompt brings up all of these different options. And if you scroll down, you can see that there are actually quite a few options here. And that's just different templates to start you off with different projects. Like if you want to build something for Arduino, or if you want to build a turtle app, there's that turtle we were talking about.
We can try the same turtle one you did.
And okay, what we're going to do is we're going to choose blank game because that's just got the basic game libraries already installed in it.
Nice. And yeah, we are building a game. And one of the funny things, it's funny, it says astonishing game on the screen. And one of the funny things about Touch Develop is it always makes up a name for your applications and games. And they're always like astonishing, amazing, awesome. I think it's hilarious. But you can rename it if you want, Sage. I'll leave that to you.
I actually kind of like Astonishing Game. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with Astonishing Game for this one.
All right, then I'm going to hold you to that, though. I expect
it better be astonishing, yeah.
Yes.
All right, so now I've opened up my Astonishing Game script, and this is what it looks like. This is our developer environment in Touch Develop. On the left here, we've got a panel that has all of our elements, like our main code here, our libraries. These are the game libraries I was talking about. And down here, we've got art. And you can see that there's actually an image already in there, and that's because the blank game is not actually blank.
No, there's actually code I can see there on the screen.
So we could talk about what this code does.
But that's not the game we're building.
No, so let's just get rid of it. We are going to, so the way I actually selected this code was I just clicked on it or tapped on it. Depending on the device you're going to use, you're going to interact with the code in different ways. But the buttons all remain the same no matter what view you're in. So to select a lot of code, I'm going to select this button here, and it brings up this green prompt, and you can just drag to select whichever code that you want to select.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then from there, I'm just going to cut the selection, delete the selection, and now we've got a blank game.
Awesome. Okay. Cool.
If we run it, you'll see what a game looks like.
Yeah, actually, I said that's okay. Yeah. So if you run it now, you've got 3 little hearts up in the top left-hand corner, and I know that has to do with the number of lives you have in your game. In the top right-hand corner, you've got a score. That's about 0. But aside from that, yeah, you've got nothing.
Yeah.
That's pretty. It's not astonishing yet. I'm sorry to break it to you,
it's
but
really not.
It needs some work.
But what kind of work should we do?
Well, I think some graphics would be good because, graphics bring a game to life, and they also give the game some personality, and that's where you express a bit of your personal style as you build the game. So I think we need a little artwork.
I think we do. But first, we should actually look at the overall finished product of our game.
Oh, yeah. So let's take a look at an example of a completed game that has similar sort of level of functionality that we're going to have. So if we actually go to my screen for a second here, I've got the completed Jetpack Jumper, which is the one we did in the Hour of Code, if you've done it. If you haven't, this is where the birth of Bot began. It is where Bot came from. So I'm just going to, you can see there's a lot of code here. Don't worry about that now, because guess what? By the end of the day, you'll have written all that code yourself, which is amazing. But if I run the game, you can get a feel for what we're going to be building. Compared to that blank screen, which Sage was showing us, you can see here that I've got this flying robot. Oh, no. I really have to work on my gaming skills. And you can see these obstacles going across the screen and Bot flying along. And if he crashes into an obstacle, I die and lose a life. So this is a much more complete game. And I'm going to try and play it one more time just to see if I can show you how if one of the obstacles actually reaches the far left hand. I'm terrible at this game. But if one of the obstacles was to successfully reach the left-hand side of the screen, you would actually see the score go up as well. It's just I'm really bad at it. So something for me to work on. I may make my version of the game a little easier because, I get frustrated when it's too hard. So maybe when I'm making my game today, I might make it a little easier than this one. But we'll see. I'll decide as we go.
So our objective is to create a side-scroller game. That's what that type of game is called.
Because, of course, the background scrolling. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go back into our blank game now and add a side-scrolling background.
Okay. So how do I do that?
Well, it's actually fairly easy. So if we go back to the code here, the very first thing we can see is this one line of code. Oh, actually, to people who have never seen code before, this might actually look like 3 lines of code.
It does.
But there's only one line that we actually want to edit here, because action main and end action are just container for the rest of the code.
Yeah, main is sort of the main program.
Exactly.
So it's the code within main that is being executed when we start our game.
Right, and we can see in the left panel here, that's where main is held as a whole.
Okay.
So that's where the name main comes from and ties in.
Okay.
But the very first change we're going to make here is to this first line of code.
All right.
Currently, it says var board equals game start.
Okay.
And we'll deal with what var board game mean in a little bit. But the very first thing we want to do is change start to start with fixed size.
Okay.
And the reason we want to do that is right now the game is set just to start on whatever dimensions your screen has.
Okay.
But I know for a fact that my background is going to have to scroll horizontally. So if I'm playing it on a phone and somebody tilts it up to a portrait.
Oh, so when you rotate the phone from sort of, a landscape to portrait view, you do that with tablets as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
Exactly. When you rotate it like that, you don't want the background to rotate too. You want it to always work in that same landscape orientation. So we're going to go back into the code and change start to start with fixed size. Now, all I did there was just press the backspace, and you can see that down here in the tray, all of the options have changed. So this tray down here is where we can find all of the things that we want to do in our code. It's our objects, it's our functions, it's our parameters. That's all what we're going to talk about.
Which is what I'll talk about, and I'll talk about in the next module. Just don't panic if those words mean nothing to you right now. They're not supposed to.
Now, I'm looking for start with fixed size, and I don't see that here. And so if I click more, I still don't see it here, so I can go into the search bar.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice if you click on that little magnifying glass and you can go to this little search bar and type in anything name that's in what you're trying to call, and easily located.
So I've selected start with fixed size, and by default it tells me 0, 0, but I know that my dimensions for my picture are actually 800. Oops, not 8,000. That would be bad.
Oh, be a really big game board.
800 by 400.
Big monitor for that.
And if we run it, it still looks the same because we don't have any background image yet.
Yeah, so all we've done is set a size for our board.
Right.
Okay.
So now we can go in and actually add a background image.
Okay.
I'm going to select this line of code, and this time we're going to add a whole new line and not just change this one. And the way you do that is by clicking on the plus sign that's above or below the line that you've got selected. So I want to add this line below. It doesn't really matter, but I want to add it down here, and I'm going to set the background scene of this game.
Okay. So now you're going to add some graphics.
Exactly. I'm going to start by selecting game from the tray and look for set background scene. There it is. It's actually in the tray this time. And now you'll notice that there are 2 little things in there separated by a comma.
Right. Those are values that I have to pass in.
Right. Exactly. The first says horizontal, and that's because we want a side scroller game.
Right. So something, so we want the graphics to scroll horizontally across the screen. Okay.
Right. So if we wanted to make it a jumper game going up in like portrait landscape or portrait orientation, then we could change the horizontal to vertical and have the graphics all move up and down instead of side to side.
Okay, that's neat.
It's just about, choosing how you want to customize your game.
You can always change it, try one if you like it, and if you don't like it, change it back. You can try them out, see how it works.
Yeah. And then the second parameter that we see in this set of brackets here is currently empty, and it says picture. And if you're ever not sure what the things are inside these brackets, this helpful little box here actually tells you. So it says direction and pick. This sets the background picture and the speed of the background.
Okay.
So I'm going to backspace that picture, and since it's a picture, I want to add art. And if I look in the tray, it's really simple. There's the art flower, and it can prompt you here. But you notice that there's already a little
that monster. That was the monster from the game that was there in the template you started. Yeah.
We don't want to use that one, but he's already in our library, so he's just going to hang out in our tray for the rest of the
He's kind of cute. He can stay.
Yeah, he's cute. So to add our own graphics, what we can do is actually go back out of this code, and the way you do that is by selecting dismiss, and go to add new action event ... And if you select that, you can add all types of different components to your game. A different action, like the main part of the code, a different page, library, and what we're going to do is add a picture resource. Once you've selected that, you get 2 highlighted options here. search art pictures, which lets you search for art pictures that are already in Touch Develop.
Oh, ones that other people have uploaded.
Exactly, or
available.
that you may have uploaded before.
Okay.
And then you can actually upload your own, which is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to browse my computer and click on my Day of the Dead background.
Ooh, okay.
We're going to go with a kind
zombie
of spooky
theme?
zombie, like, but
Nice.
still kind of cute and fun. Yeah, it's like
Cute zombies.
cute zombies.
Okay, that will be astonishing.
All right, so I'm going to name this picture. Actually, let's call it Cute Graveyard, because it is kind of a cute graveyard.
Okay.
Cute Graveyard BG, so I know it's a background. And I'm going to say cute graveyard. Wow, that's a lot of spelling.
You do realize the number of typing mistakes you make is directly proportional to the number of people watching you type.
Oh, it's so true.
So, yeah, it's because you're, in here, but this is happening.
And the reason I added a description there is just if other people want to search for a cute graveyard scene, then my picture can pop up because it's in the search terms.
Cool.
Yeah. There's one option down here that says remove white background, but we're not going to worry about that yet because that's more for characters.
Yes. Yeah, you're going to do that in a minute when
Yes.
you add your hero, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So for now, on a background, you're typically going to leave that unchecked.
Right. So we can just go ahead and publish the game, or publish, getting ahead of myself there, publish the background image, and it says picture published. And now if we scroll down, the preview
Nice.
has our cute background scene.
So that's a very, very elegant background.
For a graveyard.
Did you draw that?
No, I did not actually draw that. We have some really good art assets that we can share the link to for you later. That are just free art assets to use for side scrollers and games that you may create.
Okay, I feel better now because I made my own graphics for my game. So now
did you?
I don't. So now because I was worried that you were raising the bar there of homemade graphics.
No,
But okay,
no.
go on.
Well, if I go back to the sidebar here, I can see there's a little sad face on my main code here. And that's because there's an error in our code because we have not yet put in the art image. So I'm going to select that line and just click on my new cute graveyard picture, which is now in the tray.
Awesome.
And now if we run the game, we should see the background scrolling across the screen.
Look at
Nice.
that. Okay. Nice.
Already starting to look more like a game.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
But it needs a hero.
It does.
I'm holding it. For
So the next
Or
thing
else
that we
Hobson.
have to the next thing we have to do is add a hero, like you said, Susan. And that brings us to the first major concept of coding, which is variables. And variables are they're kind of like boxes because they hold data and you can actually use the data again later on in the game without having to remember exactly what it is.
Okay.
So that's kind of an abstract way to explain it. But before we move into actually looking at what the box kind of analogy looks like, a variable has three components. It has a name, it has a type, and it has a value. So the name is how you refer to the variable. So if I have a variable called cup, then later on, no matter what's in my cup, later on I'll just say, could you give me the cup?
Yep.
Not
makes
could you
sense.
give me whatever's in it. A variable has a type, which is drink. Yeah.
I was going to say maybe liquid.
Liquid, yeah. Liquid. Or in coding, we have numbers and we have strings and a bunch of different types. And actually, a string is not just a piece of fabric in coding, is it?
This is your fashion background coming
Yeah.
through, isn't it? Yeah, string is a string of characters. So when you store somebody's name, when you store the name of a city or the name of a location or the name of a character, things like that. And typically it's descriptions of things and names of things. Words,
Yeah.
are stored as strings, whereas numbers are, shockingly enough, numbers. And sometimes you have dates that you need to store as well to remember when things happen. So those are typically the types of things we store inside variables.
Right, exactly. And the last thing that a variable has is a value. Because why would you have a type and a name to refer to something if you don't actually have
Something in it.
Yeah.
So I have a variable name which stores the word Susan or Sage.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So let's look at what a variable would look like in some code. Here we have something similar to what we just looked at with action main and end action enclosing some code. So this says var age equals 15. Now var is the keyword that we use to actually declare a variable. So every time you see var, that means, hey, we're making a new variable here. So we've given var a name called age, and we're saying let age equal 15. Now, when we look at this, we actually can see that there is no, it doesn't say anywhere, age is a number.
No, but I mean, I can see if age is a number.
Exactly. So touch develop is really simple because it actually, automatically decides for you. Whatever you put in it, it says this variable is now that type.
Okay, so it does it based on the value you pass in. That's how it determines whether or not your variable is going to be a string or a number is based on the value you pass in the first time you give it a value.
Right. So essentially what we've done here is we've said, here's our box. It's called age, and it holds a number.
Okay.
And this is our number. We're going to make it equal to 15, and we're going to put that number in that box. So this is our variable now.
Okay.
And then what we can do is, here it says next year I'll be age plus 1.
Oh, neat.
So let's say you make this program when you're 15, and then you want to say next year I'll be 16. But if you come back to that same program the following year, you don't want to have to change everywhere that you use the number 15. Because let's say you use it next year I'll be 15 plus 1, next year I'll be 15 plus 2. Instead of that, instead of going in and saying, like, erase 15, make it 16 every single time.
Instead of having to every year go back and modify your code, say, no, but I'm 15 now. It just takes the last value it had, which was age of 15, and then when it made 16, and then when you add one again, it goes to 17, and you add one again, it goes to 18, and so on. It just keeps going up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what you can't do with this is change that type after you've created a variable.
Okay.
So we've got age is 15, so we know already that that box holds a number. So if we go in and say age is Natasha, we can't do that. And it'll actually give you an error with that nice little sad face there. So if we try to put Natasha in the box, we just can't do it.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Because in this case, initially we set age to be 15, which was a number, and then we tried to set age to be Natasha, which is a string. So touch develop comes back and goes, whoa, 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 hey, you told me age was a number. Don't you go trying to store strings in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, makes sense. So we got to stick with the same data type after it's created.
And the data type that we're going to use now in our next component of our game is actually a picture, because we're going to create what's called a sprite. And sprites are characters or objects that you can move and modify in your game. They're kind of like the actors in your movie that is your game. Does that analogy make sense?
Yeah, it does kind of make sense. Yeah. All right, so you're now going to add a variable that can hold a picture.
Exactly.
All right.
Add a hero. So if we look back at the code, what we can do is add a new line under here, and we're going to use the board to create a picture on it. So board is actually a variable that we created in the beginning. See that var character or that var keyword up there?
Yeah.
We've actually created a variable called board and set it to game start with fixed size. So now I'm going to use board and create a sprite on top of it. I'm going to say board create picture, which is here.
Okay.
And now I can go in and add my art.
So you're going to have to go back and add new artwork again, like you did for the background?
And I'm going to do that the same way by clicking on Picture Resource and uploading an image. And I've got my little steampunk girl here. I'm going to call her Steampunk Girl because that's pretty
that's a good description. That's a pretty good name for a steampunk girl.
You know what? She has red hair, so I'm going to say red hair steampunk girl for anyone who's looking for that kind of character.
All right.
And now we're actually going to use that checkbox down there. Remove white background.
Yeah, because otherwise when you see the hero added to the screen, it ends up with that sort of white, you ever seen artwork on a slide or something and you get a white background around it, that white square? We don't want that for our hero flying around on the screen. So that's what the remove white background is going to make, that white square that the character was drawn on transparent. So you don't see a white box around your hero when it's flying around the screen.
All right, so I'm going to select that and publish it. And we can actually see that it has removed the white background once, if we go to the preview here.
Oh,
see how it's got the little gray and white
checkerboard,
squares?
that sort of checkerboard background?
That means that anything behind the checkerboard will actually show through instead of showing up as white. Now if I go back to my code, I'm going to add my picture here. And the very first thing that we got to do is test it.
Yes, and this is something we really want to be careful about. When you are building games, it's a really good habit to, make a small change, test it. make the next change, test it. Make the next change, test it. So it's really important not to write 20, 30, 40 lines of code and then say, oh, I guess I should trust it and see if it works. Because I guarantee you at some point you will make a mistake in your code. It's going to happen. It happens to every programmer. If you write 2 lines of code, test it, it doesn't work, well, there's only 2 lines of code where you could have made the mistake. If you write 40 lines of code, test it, and then it doesn't work, now you got 40 lines of code to dig through to try and figure out what did you do wrong. So it's a really important to get in that habit of make a change, test it, make a change, test it. So you're going to see us do lots of testing as we go through stuff today.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually just realized that I made a mistake that can get a lot of novice coders a little bit confused. I went ahead and created the picture without putting it inside a container.
Oh, you didn't. So you forgot to create a variable.
To create the variable. So I'm going to go here, and the awesome thing about Touch Develop is you don't have to delete the whole line when you forget to make a variable. There's this awesome first tray option here called Store in var.
Oh, so that allows you to say take what came back from that command and store it in a variable.
Exactly. So if I click that, it automatically populates that as Sprite for me, and I can select the first option to rename it, and I'm going to call this my heroine.
Nice.
All right. Now if we run it, there she is.
Cool. That is really slick. So now you have a hero added and a background added. This is starting to
look like a game.
Starting to look like a game, though not a whole lot happening yet. I mean, but we still have a few modules to go, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd run out of stuff to talk about.
Exactly. So your challenge for this module is to create a blank game.
Yes.
That involves signing into Touch Develop, creating a new script, going through that whole blank game step. Then you have to add and set a background scene. So whatever images you want to use. If you want to do what Susan's going to show you in a minute and create your own background scene through Paint or another drawing tool, then you can do that. Or you can also search for art. Like you can find my cute background or my cute graveyard scene there as well. And then finally, you're going to add a hero in your variable in your game.
Okay, so challenge accepted, all right? Now, I want a deal here, though. If I've successfully completed your challenge, I want a high five.
All right.
Okay, so here we go. So if we go to my screen for a second, I'm going to show you. I have gone and I have created a board. And again, just like yours, I've said create a board with a fixed size of 800 by 400. I've gone ahead and set a background scene, though I decided to make mine scroll vertically instead of horizontally just because, just a little different. And I've created my own personal graphics, professional graphics for the background.
More rainbow.
I'm sure everybody will be downloading my graphics and reusing them. And I've added a hero and based on another character, another piece of graphics. So I think I've met your challenge. I'm just going to run my game to see if it works. Said, here we go. Oh, wait, it's giving me an experience score. This is a neat thing about Touch Develop. As you do different things in Touch Develop, it rewards you. Here you go. I have a hero and I have a background. So challenge met?
Yes.
All right, absolutely. I want my high five. All right, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so that takes us to our first stage. We have successfully created a board with a hero. So if you want to, you can now go to the next module to learn how we can start modifying that hero and learn about some more of the concepts inside the code.